Lifelong educator Linda Mosley Lucas is concerned about the future of education for students in Charleston County schools, and that's why she's running for the North Area seat on the Charleston County School Board. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down one-on-one with Linda, and be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores, and listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Linda Mosley Lucas, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Likewise. To God be the glory as always. Yes.
God be the glory.
Indeed. You know, the last time I saw you was right before I left my old job. You know how that worked out. But obviously I was one of the moderators for the Lead of Women Voters Charleston County Consolidated School Board Forum at the North Charleston High School Auditorium.
Yes.
And I actually had to ask some tough questions about some serious incidents that are going on with the school district right now. Let me begin there. The Marvin Garris case. I'm wondering, as we sit here right now, Ms. Lucas, how many more questions do you have about this case that's going on right now?
Well, so many people are asking me more and more about the case. It's a headline, and it should be, because it's about child safety and about professional impropriety, actually criminal activity. So questions I have involves, where are we? When are we going to get to some conclusions? And what are we going to establish for the future involvement of staff and children and staff? Because who knows if something else is happening between those few people who make terrible decisions and other adults as well as children. We're focusing on children, but you know, when people make stupid or criminal decisions, I don't know if they're always looking at who the victims are. I don't know if they're always thinking, I'm sure they think of the most vulnerable, and that would be the children, but we want to make sure that everyone is safe, the children and the staff. So my questions would be, where are we now, where are we going, and how are we going to make some changes from what we've learned from this?
And you talk about safety. Let me take you to Garrett Academy. Obviously, they're dealing with a rodent issue there. When you first heard about that, where was your mind?
I was not surprised. I've been in the school system, or was in the school system, for probably as long as you've been around. Possibly, that's my joke.
That's true, 34 years.
Yes, okay, so over 36 years, yeah, in Charleston County. And I've been in various neighborhoods, and downtown, uptown, crosstown, and I've seen not always the actual rodent, but I've seen their drippings, which are signs that they're there. And it was always the administrator's job to see to it that it was taken care of. So for Garrett to have it located where they are, near the railroad tracks, and probably with all this water we've had, just before they talked about that, I'm not surprised. I'm sure that they probably have that same situation in some of the homes. Why it needed to be brought to the whole public's attention makes me wonder, what did the administration do? They must have known about it. Who is it that they're contracting with to make sure that rodents, that the place is controlled? Not only rodents, but pests. We have, some people want to call them water bugs and all these other names they give them, but roaches, you know? So, and we have that down, excuse me, down in this beautiful city of Charleston. Also, when you walk from the theater in the evenings, you're not always stepping on cobblestone. You have to be cautious. So that's the nature of living, that there are going to be rodents and pests, but we can control them. So my question was, what happened with the plan to keep those out of the school system, out of the school itself, and to keep everyone safe and healthy, because it can be a health problem. So.
And you're talking about, obviously you're 36 years in the public school system.
Plus.
That's right, plus. Okay, from that time to now, what is the biggest difference about the Charleston County School District in your mind?
Well, each section of Charleston County Schools, the school district, is different, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running to see to that it's equalized and equitable for the impoverished kids as well as for those who are in affluent neighborhoods. But one of the things I've noticed or remember is that when I worked in the affluent neighborhoods, very often we had everything, all the resources that we needed. There was a strong sense of morals, the climate was positive, the teachers were, or the educators were pretty much upbeat. In those days also there wasn't a lot of open complaints as we have people now who are very vocal about their rights and their feelings. In those days people talked among themselves, maybe in the teacher workroom, but there wasn't a lot of talk about complaints because you had a clean environment, you had the resources, and especially when your principal was a person you could talk with, there were no complaints. And when I moved that down to, say, the city, when I was in District 20, right, there tended to be a difference in parent involvement. For some reason, there wasn't as much parent involvement in some of the situations, unless it was a basketball game or a football game, then everybody came out. But maybe that meant the parents were pleased, or maybe they were going by the old system of letting the schools handle everything. But when I was in District 20, the kids still had everything that they needed. I didn't hear complaints. And maybe I wasn't around when somebody was complaining. I'm sure there's no perfect system. But now I see the difference now is that, as I said before, people are much more vocal. They grab a group of people to join them who have similar feelings about an issue, and they march or they have petitions or all of the above. So now it's more of let's make this better. We're not going to keep going into what we had before if they had a complaint before. For me, I see it as moving on into a new time frame, a new culture. When I was in District 20 before, it was very much segregated. How has that changed now? Not just even more segregated, even though they have choice schools and all those things, they have more segregation. And so if anything, I would like to see the segregation part really change, not just on the papers from the civil rights law, but from actuality, making sure that all the kids can get a great education. So I guess I would say it would be about the racial issues more than anything else.
And when you talk about schools, where are you with the discussion about charter schools?
I believe, first of all, strongly that the homeschool should be the glowing school of choice. That whatever folks now are going to those other schools for, they should be able to get right on their block or down the street. Why should a person have to travel 5 miles or a child ride early in the morning to a school because it has a better reputation, better supplies, cleaner environment, a curriculum that's state of the art? Why should it be in one neighborhood and not at the home school? So I believe strongly that home schools should be the first place. On the other hand, I think if a parent chooses, for whatever reason they have, to want to go to another school, it could possibly even be something like childcare. When I was on the Constituent board, I remember often that parents came before us to ask if their children could go to a certain school that was not in their neighborhood because their jobs were 2 blocks away, or the babysitter or the grandparent was a block away. And that is important. So if a parent has their reasons for wanting to go, I don't think they should have to fight and go to City Hall or make it a big issue. They should have a right to go through a process that's easy enough to have their children go to another school. First, home schools should be excellent, neighborhood schools, and then they should have a right to make a choice if they want to.
You talk about the Constituent School Board. Obviously, there's a talk about the future of that.
Yes, I've heard that too.
Where are you emotionally with that? Knowing that what you just said about the process of, people wanting to go to different schools if they want to, what should the Constituent School Board that should be in the future in your mind?
Recently, someone was talking with me about the lack of power in the Constituent School Board. And to me, that was a change because in 2000, when I was on the board, of course, we were not the primary board, but we had what seems now in looking more power than they do now. We even interviewed the principal candidates, the administrators, and we sent the names of 3 that we chose down to the main board, as we call the big board, and they made the final decisions. But now I'm told that that doesn't even happen in the Constituent Board. So what I would like to see is, I really believe strongly in coming together around the table instead of people in their own group making the decision for people in another group. I think we should have everybody coming together, representatives, and deciding what is best for the children. Is it still a great idea to have a Constituent School Board? And if so, what exact powers are they going to have that will filter into the consolidated school board? It shouldn't be an us and a them. It's not a versus, it's a team effort. It should not be the constituent board versus the big board, or the people on the constituent board feeling that they're slighted. The folks on the constituent board, from my experience, were people just as dedicated to seeing that those children, those students, have a good education as, and maybe in some cases more so, than some of the folks on the big board, as we call it. I don't think we should penalize them because they also are part of that culture in that community, whereas the folks on the big board may have 1 or 2 representatives, but the whole entire board may not be aware of what it's like to be living on Rivers Avenue or in the Neck, which is, you know,
right,
the Charleston area. So I think there's a purpose for both, but they have to design that purpose so that they have their individual powers that can be united and always for the kids. That's where I am with that.
Now, if you are to be elected on the Consolidated School Board, what would you do? Oh.
Excuse me, when I am elected to the Consolidated School Board,
Yes,
what's your question?
Yeah. Who will you bring to the table as far as discussions on the future of these schools?
Okay. Every stakeholder. I would like to see an advisory board, not elected, selected from their how would I say, peers. I would like to have high school students, maybe 2 high school students. Don't have the exact numbers right now, but not all from one neighborhood, but it may be from student councils that they select these people. But students, parents, educators, classroom teachers, and other educators. There are other people working with teachers who are not called classroom teachers that are still instrumental in helping to help that classroom teacher do what she's doing. Some of the businesses in the community, especially the ones who are have been here for a short time, because they have come in and realized that we didn't have all the manpower, if I can say manpower. I don't know if that's politically correct anymore. Employee power that they needed because of the educational deficit we have. So I would like for them to be there so they can say, this is what we're looking for, and this is what we need. How can we do this? And then the community, the faith-based community or the non-faith-based community come together, and we talk about character development. We have to talk about everything for the children. We want them to be whole, not only educated, but good character, knowing how to handle conflicts and how to do business, how to talk to someone, even if you're working part-time at a McDonald's or Burger King, to know how to speak to people and not just, you know, throw things at people. I've had people, unfortunately, I've had folks who, high school students, when the system went down and they couldn't use the technology, they didn't know how to figure out what to ask you for in terms of the cost of the food, and they didn't know how to make change. So I remember in Wando High School, I was literally practicing with high school students who worked at a McDonald's way back then to practice how to get change. So everybody needs to come together so our kids, who will not always be kids, can take over and make things even better as they go along.
You talk about the kids, let's talk about the teachers.
Yes.
What should their pay be like for the Charleston County School District in your mind?
The pay?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, one of my goals too is to focus on teacher recruitment and retention, and of course, pay is a part of that. I have done a little research, and I personally know that when I moved here in 1980, I took a 50% pay cut from what I was making in New York, but for other circumstances, I chose to stay, and I'm so glad that I did. But now looking around, when I look at the schools that are listed as the more successful school districts, their pay go along with that. When you look at California, New York, Massachusetts, they're thriving school districts. So when some people say, oh, it's not about the pay, but the pay has a lot to do with it. If you want to pay the rent around Charleston now, which is not what it used to be, you need to have we call equitable education. You need equitable pay and some, so you can live, especially when there are teachers who have families, they have their own children, they have expenses. So the pay to me is important. I believe that in addition to the pay, the benefits package should be dynamic. Because if you have a benefits package, you can kind of put up with a little bit of the pay as it begins to increase slowly, whether it's 12 step, 15, 25, 30 step. But when you have benefits where they're giving you some housing allowance, where they're giving you a membership to a wellness program, which you can use because of the stress you're going through, whether they can even help you with car rental or car purchase and other things. And another benefit, I believe strongly that there should be 2 adults in a classroom. I think a teacher would love to have an assistant or a co-teacher. That helps her to have someone to bounce what she's doing and to work together and to also see what's going on in the classroom. So those are the kinds of things I think should go along with the pay, as well as educational benefits to go on with their education and not have to pay it all out of their pockets, but to be reimbursed like they did many years ago. They used to reimburse you when you showed that you were going to advance educationally. Also professional workshops, not just to have someone come in and stand there and tell you about themselves and show you some good data and some programs they've done, but to actually be involved in hands-on, watching what you do and coming back to see how you actually apply the workshop information so that you feel strengthened and encouraged. We lose a lot of folks because it's just too much pressure of the testing, the lack of supplies, and no one to really appear to be caring about the teachers' needs. And so I think along with the pay, we must have those benefits. Another thing is principals, this is still benefits, right? Which is human benefits. People should know how to talk. Administrators, I think, could use some, not all of them, but a number of them from what I've heard, could benefit from professional workshops that show them how to empathize, how to communicate with their staff. For example, if you're about to make a major change in the schedule and you're about to reassign someone to another classroom or another person to work with, I don't think it should be a paper stuck in the box. It should be a discussion about what it is you're thinking of doing and to get that person's feelings about that, and so they know that you care. So benefits along with the pay.
And if you were to be elected to the Consolidated School Board, that is, and you look at that budget, what would you take out and what would you put in?
I would put more in for the actual education of the children, and especially to the neediest schools. I have found in my research that Wyoming, for example, chose to put more money into the needy schools. They didn't call it that. I think they said the impoverished schools, as opposed to just giving everybody the same kind of formula, which is what CCSD is doing. So I would redo who gets the money and how much they get, focusing on where the need is the greatest. So that's where my budget would go the most.
And let's get back to your campaign. From the time you announced your bid for the Charleston County School Board to now, what have you learned about the North Area District?
Actually, I guess I was already very familiar with the North Area District, so I don't think I learned anything new. I've learned 1 or 2 disappointing things about human nature, which I thought by now I already knew, and that is in terms of the election or the campaigning process itself, you get to see what people are really like, whether their smile is genuine and whether they mean what they say, and whether some people think that this is really about them, so they do whatever it takes to get their names out there. So that's a human nature kind of thing. I get disappointed when getting something for yourself is more important than character. And I'm not calling any names or pointing any fingers, but I've seen some things that it's kind of disappointing. Not surprising, but disappointing. It's not a perfect world yet. And certainly I'm not perfect either, but with the Lord's help, I stand to be corrected whenever necessary. So North Area to me is a place that mimics the downtown area in terms of the development. The traffic is, I don't want to use the word horrendous because it's so negative, but it is something other than what we would like to see. In terms of the schools, they're building schools there, and I'm hoping that they're not going to close any schools. Not mentioning Garrett's name right now, although you mentioned about the rodents. There were other discussions about that. We're hoping to have some other career-related centers built very shortly. One of the things about, and I might be digressing a little bit, but one of the things about those schools that are districts that are successful is that they focus greatly on the school to career issues. And so I'm hoping that North Charleston will increase the opportunities so they can get rid of that opportunity gap. And to also begin to do those things on an early level, earlier, not wait until middle school and high school. In my schools, when I was at Hersey, for example, and I'd already been at a high school, several high schools, and even done counseling on the college level at CSU. I did not wait for my students to get to another year that someone said they need to be looking at careers. My students, even the pre-Ks, 3-year-olds and up, had career opportunities in terms of speakers, lunch buddies from certain companies, some of the video presentations or online presentations that I did concerning careers, because you need to start with children very early to begin to dream and to begin to see their potential and to look forward to education. It's in the elementary area that kids decide what they like about school. And what does that mean?
Oh, no, you're fine.
You didn't pay your bill. I'll tell you where to go for that too. I often tell people how to get help with that. And I still do get phone calls. You never stop when you're serving people and let there be light.
Thank God.
When you're serving folks. And so I think that we just need to make sure that, I almost forgot what we were talking about because the lights just kind of did a dimming thing. But I think we need to make sure that not only all of Charleston County School District, but North Charleston too. We cannot have a successful school district if one pocket is not succeeding. It can't just be Mount Pleasant. It's not called Mount Pleasant School District. It's not called West Ashley School District. It's Charleston County School District. So we need to make sure that everybody can say, this is my school. I told you about the successful districts focusing on early childhood with the reading and the math and the career focus and giving monies to those places where it's needed. So.
And Dr. Postway, if you were to be elected on the school board, how would you work with her?
Okay, I'm going to correct you again. When I'm elected on the school board, if is something that people look at when they don't believe it sometimes, but I'm already believing it. So when I'm elected to the school board, I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Postway. Okay. I've been asked in several, and I guess we have had so many interviews and forums. I have to look at my calendar and tell you the numbers, but in most of them they asked me what rating I would give to her. And I told her personally this month at a listening session at Zucker Middle School that I went to, I told her that I've been asked this question, what rating would you give her? And I told her I would give her a B, maybe a B minus in some areas. I would give her a B because I see her reaching out for school to career options for our children. She's doing more with organizations or businesses such as MUSC, Boeing, and other places. So she knows the reality that our kids need these opportunities. I think I gave her the B minus because there's still a lot of room for growth. I've often, as I said before, sent her little notes saying thank you and complimenting her, and she was recently recognized. I see her as a very intelligent woman with a big heart. I'm not sure that she's been allowed to use all that she has come to Charleston County with. I would like to tap into some of her other resources, some things that maybe she hadn't shared with. I'm not on the board yet, but when I get there, I want to find out what other ideas she has, because it really takes the superintendent, the school board, and all the other stakeholders to make this work. Charleston is going to be a role model school district, and it takes all of us.
Linda Mosley Lucas, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yes, to God be the glory.
To God be the glory.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.